Welcome to Cine Bijou, where we delve into the diverse creative world of independent film with your host, Graumann writes.
Hello everyone, so glad you tuned in. Every fortnight through feature explorations and insightfully fun interviews, we'll make Cine Bijou your destination for discovering hidden gems and supporting the voices of indie films that deserve to be heard. So grab your popcorn and settle into your seats as we shine a spotlight on emerging filmmakers, thought-provoking narratives, and groundbreaking techniques that redefine the art of storytelling. This year marks a monumental milestone for one of the most esteemed short film festivals in the world. Over the past 20 years, the Hollyshorts Film Festival has been a beacon for creative expression, providing a launchpad for countless filmmakers to share their stories with the world. Held at the iconic TCL Chinese Theatre, or, as I know it best, Graumann's Chinese Theatre in Los Angeles, Hollyshorts is renowned for its vibrant atmosphere, diverse selection of content, and commitment to the art of short films. We bring you the first of 3 interviews with filmmakers who will go head-to-head this week on that iconic big screen. And with Hollyshorts being an Oscar-qualifying event, they might just get a chance at a nomination for the coveted Golden Statue. Our first look then features a step into the surreal. Imagine being sober for a year, a significant achievement on its own, to be fair, but with a surreal twist. You can't stop vomiting goldfish. Oh, intrigued? Well, Fishtank is the latest film written and directed by LA-based filmmaker Wendi Tang. Her protagonist, Jules, played by Tiffany Chu, navigates this bizarre reality with resilience and curiosity. Fishtank really is an experience that blends traditional narrative with experimental elements, making audiences question what they perceive as normal. In our exclusive interview with Wendi, we delved into her creative process to learn about the inspiration behind Fishtank and what she hopes audiences will take away from this surreal drama.
I went to school in New York. I went to NYU, and after I graduated from the film program from Tisch, I moved out to LA and trying to, still find my stories, and I want people to hear my voice. Currently, I am really focused on character-driven stories that are exploring different aspects of the female narratives, because I feel like in the current landscape, there's still a lot of like stereotypical um, female voices that are being portrayed, and I want to show to the world that our voice can be very diverse. Our voice can be it sometimes can be aggressive, and sometimes it can be very subtle. Like it has we have like different ways of expression that needs to be heard.
And different life events as well.
And
What may be sort of easy to understand from one perspective will be very hard for another if it's not talked about enough. In discovering your passion for filmmaking, who are your influences, especially women filmmakers? Because, as you say, I don't think enough stories are told, and I don't think enough women filmmakers do get shouted about. So, who are your influences?
When I first started studying film, it was like officially studying. It was 2015, 2016, about that. And at that time, there was a movie called Raw by director Julia Ducournau, and that movie really stuck with me for a long time. And yeah, the same director also came up with Titan in 2021, but I think that movie really struck me with its authenticity and the boldness in the storytelling, and that kind of like challenged my understanding of what a film could be. It could be as bold as it is. It could be very subtle as well, but I think that film really pushed the boundary for me to let me know that I can tell the story in a very bold way as well.
What sort of women's stories do people need to see?
That's a great question. I think first of all, we need to see in those stories that women are their own. They're not, a part of other people's lives. They're not just some like functional character to help the main character grow. They have their own life. And their life could be as chaotic and it could be also very dull. And those are all possible in, the women's stories because that's how we as women we're living our lives. Like some parts of our life could be very fascinating, but parts of it could be very saddening or angry. I think we need to allow the stories to go to different range, like different end of the spectrum, to really show that how wide this spectrum can be.
So, aside from the unique perspective of being a woman,
Mhm.
what other positive traits do you feel that films by women bring to the world of cinema?
I tend to feel that films by women, they are they're more, let me see how I can phrase that. Um, I often have the feeling when I'm watching, films from women filmmaker, I feel like I feel the stronger emotional arc in it. Or yeah, just for example, I watched Saltburn the other day. Like a few
I
months
still
ago.
haven't seen that.
You should see that. That was so great. Yeah, it's like when you're reading the storyline, you might feel, oh, it might be just, another story that I've watched before. But when you actually see how they execute the script and how they brought all of the very bold and brave points into the story, and yeah, I think it's very precise. I think that's the word I'm looking for. They're very precise in portraying the emotions, the characters, and how um the characters are growing, how the emotions are evolving. It's like in a
Mhm.
very precise way.
Which leads us nicely on to Fishtank. So now this is an interesting story because there's so much you could take out of that. And I just want to ask you, where did you get the idea for A, the story, and B, to tell it in this fashion, using the fish tank of the title as this sort of metaphor for the human condition?
Yeah, thank you for that question. This story actually came from like the direct inspiration came from one of my dreams. Like I'm those type of people who have like w wild dreams all the time that I travel to another universe. I get to, experience a lot of things that I haven't experienced in life, but sometimes that kind of also relates back to myself. So, that the dream was one of it, and in the dream, I dreamt of myself in the middle of nowhere and I wanted to throw up. Interestingly, in that dream, I knew I was kind of dreaming. And I knew that this world might not be real, but I want to see how it plays out. So I just let it play. But in the dream itself, the like myself in the dream really wanted to throw up. And before I can realize what's happening in the dream, I already saw like a goldfish landing on my palm and is like, struggling. So that's the direct image that really just woke me up from the dream. I was like, I gotta write it down. And I always believe that dreams are, they kind of relate to your thoughts and they sometimes relate to your history. They themselves are inspirations, not just to storytelling, but also to your um like your worldview, your mindset. It could through the dreams, there's a lot to decipher. So I wrote it down and I spent a decent amount of time trying to figure out its connection to my own emotion and to my own experience, my journey. And there comes the story that I want to share with the world. And yeah, I just trace it back to the very beginning of an anger that I've always had in my heart growing up as a woman. And I feel like that is something, and I talked to some friends, and it turns out that's something that we all share, but we don't talk about. So I think that's something that's worth telling in a story to really let the world know that how powerful our anger,
Yeah.
our emotions can be.
Yeah, I get that because in the film, the main character, Jules, brilliantly played by Tiffany Chu, uh, she's going through all kinds of struggles. But Jules is quite an interesting character, isn't she? Because she's someone who is desperately trying to regain control when she feels so much out of control. And the fish scene, the vomiting of the fish, which I think is probably the most surreal thing I've seen in film. Not recommended for anybody with an easy gag reflex or fear of fish, um, but that seems to be symbolic of that, isn't it? Just that loss of control and that battle to re-engage it. Do you feel that's actually? Do you feel that there's a story there that women can relate to?
Yes. That kind of brings up like one of the early memories that I had as a kid. Because when I was a kid, I wasn't allowed to have any kind of pets because my parents they didn't like any furry animals. And I wanted a pet so bad, just like a lot of other kids. I wanted a dog, I wanted a cat. It was all like I all I got was no. If you get a cat or a dog, like I'll throw you out. Well, I'll throw you out with the dog or something like that. I was like, oops. All right. Then so the only pet that I got to have was my little goldfish. And I had the goldfish um in the little ball. And I still remember when I looked into the tank, when I look at the fish's eye, all I felt was not like the feeling I instantly had was not happiness or excitement. It was more like a very sad feeling that I feel for it immediately. And I know that its whole life is gonna be in this ball. And that kind of like years after that, um, when I started to like started working and that feeling just it just like echoes back to that initial memory that I had. So I feel like a lot of the times, because of the glass ceiling and everything that women are facing in the job market, it's almost like we're being trapped inside of fish tanks. It's like a lot of people are observing us and they're paying a lot of attention to every move that we have, and and they put their judgment on it, just like how they comment the beautiful fish. And I don't like it. I would just say I don't like that feeling, being trapped inside a fish tank and being observed and entertained. And so I want to break it. I want to shake it up a little bit.
Okay, I see where you're coming. That's quite an interesting analogy that you've just put forward. That feeling of being trapped, because that's what happens to Jules in the film. She is trapped.
She is trapped.
She's being controlled by her environment and the people in it, pretty much. And although she seems to take some comfort in her AA meeting space, was that the intention to create a comfort space before you introduce another sort of uncomfortable element?
Yes, that was completely my intention. Because I feel like a lot of the truth, they come from very unexpected ways. Like for her, for the character of Jules, she tells it as a joke. Like she knows that most of the people, or basically all the people, they wouldn't believe it because it's so bizarre. But why did she still choose to, speak that out was because she told it as a joke, and but for her it was real. So her mindset was, if anybody can, get what's under the joke, that's great, that we can establish some connections. But if not, it could just be a good joke that makes everyone laugh. That's basically her mindset in that scene. And I would say in that scene, the other people in the group, apparently most of them don't think it's real. They just think it's a really, nice joke, especially when someone pulled another joke before.
Of course, and I suppose there's that whole sort of comfort in the sort of the humor, the defensive element of humor, using it
Yeah.
as a shield, if you like.
Hmm.
She can sort of still like I said,
Speak truth.
speak the
Yeah.
truth, but in such a way where she's not overly judged, she's comfortable, she's
Mhm.
space. But in that space steps Matt, and I thought it was interesting the way you wrote and portrayed the instant connection they have through that joke. Um, and that leads to quite an interesting element of their relationship that evolves,
Mhm.
which is here you have someone desperately trying to take control of their life and fight their addiction and remove themselves from the dependency of alcohol and what have you, only to find that the person that's supposedly trying to help them is trying to switch that dependency to him.
I wouldn't say that's switching dependency. I would say for Jules, like part of her knows that she has to overcome all the difficulties on her own.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but she still has the desire for connections,
Mm-hmm.
but that's not to depend on the other person, but
Mm-hmm.
it's to complete her own
Mm-hmm.
experience. That's
So
how I see this.
I see what you mean. It's an interesting film. It's an interesting story with a lot of messages in there. Are you happy with the finished product?
Yeah, I'm very proud of it
Mm-hmm.
because I know how hard it is for the whole crew and cast to pull it
Mm-hmm.
off and how difficult the post-production process was. So
Mm-hmm.
I'm just really proud of it. And I want to shout out to the whole team, the cast and crew, and the
Mm-hmm.
post-production team, the VFX team. They all helped to make this film a
Mm-hmm.
product, a
Yeah,
really great film.
yeah, it really is, and all credit to them. And of course, the feedback's been really good when you started submitting it for competition. You won at Tribeca, and you also won the short script competition at the Film Pipeline
Yeah.
2022 competition. That's got to feel good to actually not just have your film played, audience stand up and applaud, but for someone to give you an accolade that says this film is worth that has met a standard or has met a quality that we feel deserves recognition.
Yeah, I completely agree. And I like from my personal point of view, it was not just the accolades that make me feel good. It was more that the connection, like how Jules is looking for in the story, is the connection with other people through the story that really fulfilled, that like make me feel really happy and kind of want to cry. Because I know when I first started writing the story, like I know it's gonna be a very bizarre and ambitious story, but and not everyone's gonna get it and not everyone's gonna like it. So I took the chance and it's like almost like I'm throwing out something into the world and see, you know, who and what kind of people can, click with it. And I really appreciate that process. I think that's also one of the goals in my filmmaking that I want to connect with people. I want to challenge how they view, films, and I want to connect with them as well.
I usually find with films like this, or any film where it's completely character driven, the story and the focus is purely on the individual rather than the event, is at some point somebody will not necessarily walk up, but will contact the filmmaker. And they all say the same thing, which is, your film really resonated with me. It really spoke to me. And some of them will even go into detail as to how. Have you had that kind of feedback? Have you made those connections you were talking about where people have said, your film has spoken to me, that there's things in there that they can relate to?
Yes, yes, completely. And that actually started to happen really early on in the process when I started to submit it to competitions. And one of the executive producers that came on board and helped us finish the film was Jennifer Morrison. And I think we really clicked when she read the script. And it's almost like it's not something that can be easily put into words. It's the feeling that it's like your brainwave kind of like match with each other. and you completely understand all the nuanced in the story and what it means to our lives. I think that's a really beautiful feeling that I've been having with the film. And I've also had other people or just audience reach out to me and just saying how much they understand it. And especially there was a time when we were screening at the Death Center Film Festival. That was our world premiere. And a few of the audience just came up to me that I can see through their eyes that they understand the story completely and they find it very relatable. Like, those are the moments that are just amazing and fascinating and beautiful that I want to remember those moments forever.
I can imagine. And I've got to say, the cinematography, the lighting and the colors and everything. I say colors because actually a lot of the film is quite not dark, but there's sort of, it's quite somber except for the fish. And it does remind me, I don't know if you've ever heard of this filmmaker, Yimu Zhang, who did Hero with Jet Li, House of the Flying Daggers. He does a similar thing whereby he's all about the vibrant colors, but he will sometimes do a sort of a gray matte or a dark matte that will bring one color to the fore so that it stands out. And you do that as well with the fish. The fish are the bright light, I suppose. The color that bring that come into Jules's life. It's really quite stunning, and I would imagine on a big screen it looks amazing.
Yeah. We actually had a lot of conversations about that with the cinematographer Jay and with the colorist Alistair and at Photocam. And shout out to him as well. We really had the conversation. We went really deep into what we want the audience to feel. Like you said, the fish, they're very vibrant and they're very colorful. Those two jewels, they're kind of the light in her life at that moment. So it means to her. So when something happens later down the story, like you can feel the contrast on a stronger level that what those fish mean to her and why she would do something that she does. I don't want to spoil it, but yeah.
No, I get what you mean. So now you're no stranger to, as we mentioned earlier, you're no stranger to putting your films up for competition. So not just putting it up for an audience to watch and watching with bated breath to see how they react, but to actually put it in competition against others. You go into basically what is the holy site of short film competitions, which is Hollyshorts over at what I know as Graumann's Chinese Theatre. I know they call it now TCL Chinese, but I know it as Graumann's.
Yeah.
How big of a thrill is that for you? And how much, bearing in mind that it is an Oscar qualifying event, which means that if you pick up some awards, you could potentially qualify, Fishtank could potentially qualify for an Oscar. So how thrilling is it for you, and how nervous are you that your film is going to go in competition at what is a pretty big event?
Yeah, that was when I got the news through email. I literally, I shouted at myself. I was like, yes, because what's special about it is that it's our first home screening because all the film crew and cast were from LA and we shot the film in LA, and that's our first film screening that we get to share with the world. And I immediately emailed everyone and be like, hey, we got into this and please show up. Let's celebrate it. Yeah. So it really means a lot to me. But in terms of the awards and stuff, I know it's like out of my control. There's nothing I can do about it. Because it's a very subjective process and there's a lot of things I don't understand in that process. But what I can do is to present it and to go to the Q&A to really talk to the audience, to introduce them to the world. I think that's what I'm gonna do at the film festival, at the screening event. And I'm just glad, just like the fact that I get to share it with more people makes me happy. Yeah.
So just one more question. What have you got lined up for the future? What is in Wendi, what other film does Wendi have planned to dazzle us with?
Thanks for asking. Yeah, I'm working on the feature version of it, of Fishtank right now, actually.
Oh, right. Okay.
Let the world know.
Hmm.
Like, I feel like when I first came up with the idea, I had a really grand plan for this world that because the time limit of a short film that it didn't get to explore a lot of the background of it and
Hmm.
other potentials of the story. So I like right after I finished the short, I immediately started to expanding it into a
Hmm.
feature film. And I hope that through the feature there's a more complicated, more fascinating world that can be portrayed.
Hmm.
And I also, there's something else I want to say in the feature. And I hopefully one day I can get it made.
So, without giving too much away, then
Mhm.
obviously people are going to watch this, and short films invariably leaving you wanting more. A good short film
Yeah.
certainly does. So, are you going to explore Jules's character more? Are you going to explore the character and let things reveal themselves, or are there going to be revelations about who she is, how she got where, what direction are you going to take her story?
That's a very good question. I think I'm definitely going to go deeper into her background, into her way of thoughts.
Hmm.
And I'm also going to go deeper into her relationship with the world, not just with other people, but with the
Hmm.
world. Like a lot of things that she experienced maybe before the story happens really contribute to um this consequence. And she's
Hmm.
willing to, she's willing to take the consequence for her actions.
Hmm.
Yeah, and there's a lot more after the ending of the story that can be explored in the future as well.
Thank you for joining us on Cine Bijou, where we shine a spotlight on independent films and the creative minds behind them who continuously push the boundaries of storytelling. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to hit that like or follow button and subscribe so you never miss an episode. You can also find us on social media. Why not follow us on Threads, Instagram, YouTube, and Facebook for all the latest news, insights, and views from the world of independent film. We also love hearing from you, our listeners and followers, so why not drop us a comment or maybe even send us a message. Until next time, keep listening, keep supporting, and help us keep the indie spirit alive.